Hello and welcome to part 7 of the ChessTDD series. It's been a little while, so I'm going to go back through and stop resting on my laurels and get rid of the green things from weeks ago when I was working on this, and sort of resume my focus. And I'm also going to stop being cute here. It was, I thought funny several weeks back when I was doing this, but now and king and queen and maybe knight doesn't make a lot of sense, so I will just favor being clear instead of being clever. So I'm going to say that I want to define queen, king, and knight classes. And then I'm going to get down to business with my tasks sort of set out clearly here in front of me. And you'll notice that I have the bigger font as per the feedback that I got. And hopefully you can see the spreadsheet better now. So the first thing I'm going to do here is, it's been a bit, and I wasn't real thrilled about the correctness coverage that I have. There's nothing in the red-green refactor cycle that prevents you from writing green tests to beef up the tests against your code base. And in fact, that's going to be a sort of standard thing that you're going to do. It's not TDD per se, but oftentimes you're going to find that the tests you write while doing TDD aren't going to give you complete coverage. Test-driven development doesn't aim to be a comprehensive testing strategy, integration testing, smoke testing, nothing like that. So writing additional tests to satisfy yourself that you're well covered for a variety of cases, there's certainly absolutely nothing wrong with that, and that's what I'm going to do here. I want to be a little more confident in my algorithm. So I'm writing a couple of tests. I'm going to write this one and then another one, in which instead of moving by just one diagonal, I move across the entire board, because our bishop should be able to do that. And I feel if I move across the board on two different types of diagonals from front to back, so to speak, I'll feel pretty good that the bishop is getting the correct range of movement. So I'm just finishing up here, and I'm expecting these tests to go green. It would be sort of whiplash inducing. If they went red, it would be the discovery of a bug. But it's important to always verify your assumptions. That's why the red in general and the red-green refactor is so important. You don't really ever want your code to be doing things you don't understand. So if you write a test that you expect to go red and it goes green, that's a problem. Your code works and you don't know why. This is called programming by coincidence, as read in The Pragmatic Programmer, and I strongly advise against it. So with some better coverage, I'm going to mark this particular to-do item as green, and I'm going to move on to refactoring this ugly method. And as I look at this method, one thing that I notice is that there's a pattern. There's a visual pattern here where you've got the declaration, the conditional, and then the action. And not only is there a pattern to those things, but they look pretty similar in general. So when you have a pattern like that, this generally means that you've got duplication, and that duplication can be eliminated. And I'm also, as an aside, noting here that I should, and I actually get this wrong, I should have said bishop should go in its own file, but c'est la vie. So writing things down while I think of it. But back to what I was saying, I'm going to write a method here where I attempt to take this duplication and kind of consolidate it. So I'm declaring several different board coordinates that vary only by, it looks like, the plus and minus of the x and y starting location. So that's a lot of needless duplication, and I'm going to try and consolidate here in order to eliminate this duplication. I'm going to try to take what's the same everywhere and do my best to parameterize the things that aren't the same. So toward that end, I think I can return, I'm going to figure 4 board coordinates if I just pass in this distance, because that's the starting position and the distance. The main thing that's varying here is this concept of distance, which I'm iterating over with index. So the thing that varies for each of these clumps of code, each of these 3-liners in the for loop, is really just the actual board coordinate itself that gets declared with the plus and minus. So I banged out a bunch of duplication there, and now I'm going to go, and you see I've distilled down the actual difference: plus, minus, minus, plus, and minus, minus. These are the elements that are different. So if I just return this board coordinate set, then I think I can get rid of all this code here, and I can just call this get radial diagonal from method, and feel good that I'm going to be adding the right things to this list of moves. So I'm going to say that for each of the board coordinates that I'll call radial moves that I'll get back from this method, I'm going to go ahead and add them to the collection. Now, when I first do this, there's going to be an issue in that, let's see here, I'm going to be duplicating because this test should certainly go red because I'm going to be adding everything twice. So I'd expect a number of tests to go red, and there they go. So I'm going to highlight all this code, and I'm just going to tentatively comment it out and kind of see what happens. And if that goes green, then hey, great, I'll delete it. If it stays red, then I'll figure out what's wrong. So it stays red. And if I go look at what's going on here, oh, we are not filtering out the invalid coordinates. So I'm going to add a where condition on here. And I'm going to say that I want to get radial diagonals where the board coordinate in question is actually valid. And then I think this should go green. So is coordinate valid for board size, and I'm going to pass it the board size. And there it goes. So that's good. I can come down here and delete all this cruft, and duplication eliminated. That's always terrific. This get moves from method is getting more readable. We've still got a long way to go, but the duplication's gone. It's not as noisy. It's not as long. So I'm going to do a little cleaning up here in terms of giving things names that I like and sort of restructuring it to be readable in my mind. So I am factoring out and naming with a local variable moves for index because I think that makes it clear what I'm doing, and then I'm going to get rid of those curly braces to compact things a little bit more, and I'm still green, so that's good. Now, I think that it's not going to be too hard to get to a more declarative functional kind of layout and actually get rid of this paradigm of declaring a list, adding things to it, and returning the list. I personally have, over the years that I've been doing things with LINQ and functional semantics, I've gotten really not to like that kind of procedural cruft as I see it. I would rather just declare in statements what I want rather than worrying about things like loops and control flow statements. I think there's a certain elegance to that. Your mileage may vary. So what I'm doing here now is I've left in the floundering a bit I did as I sort of scratched my head over how to do this in a more linky sort of way. What I was getting around to here is to say that, well, instead of having this loop, I want to define some concept of the integers through which I want to iterate and get those into a collection and then select things based on the collection. So I first get it wrong by saying repeat. I believe what I'm looking for is range. And let's see if I get it here. Oh, select is not it. There we go. I'm getting close. And jackpot, so range. And what I'm probably going to want is to range from 1 to board size +1 because we're not doing 0 indexed here. So this is going to give me the actual coordinates. It's the thing I'm iterating over in the for loop as a collection. So right now I am trying to kind of do this all in one fell swoop. I believe I will quickly think better of this approach. And my LINQ foo is pretty good, but I don't know that it's quite good enough to get all this in one go around. So I am going to be a little less ambitious here, and I'm going to do a select. I'm going to say for these spaces to radiate, I want to get something that I'll call move sets. And so for each space, I want to get all of these radial diagonals. And that's basically what I want to return, except where they're valid. So I do stumble with this a bit. I'm going to say spaces to radiate, and I think I want to do a select. And then I try that, and we'll see how it goes. So for each of these, now I get the idea to call get radial diagonal from. And I'm going to pass it the starting location that's passed into the method, along with the parameter to this lambda. And then I'm going to also include this where, because it's my goal to keep this green once I get rid of the stuff below. But what I'm running into here is I've actually made a mistake. This is going to select a collection of collections, and I figured that out with a little trick by using CodeRush to make this explicit and show me what it's actually being returned even though I didn't know before. So I see that what I need to do is select many. which stops compiling. I'm going to make this implicit, and then let's see what it is now if I make it explicit. There we go. Now it's a collection of board coordinates, which is what I want. So now I can go back and I can put this where clause, and IntelliSense will point me in the right direction and give me the heuristic that this is in fact working. And I have a compiling code, and the tests are still passing, so there's no exceptions. Now I'm going to return this, and excellent. I can delete all this other stuff. Now there's no list, there's no iterators, there's no control flow statements, it's all declarative. But what I'm not going to do is declare myself done here, because this is pretty dense and I think hard to read. I used to really take pride in this kind of stuff, but people would come along and say, wow, you know, you're pretty good at LINQ, but what on earth does this say? And the point here isn't to boast. The point here is to make this read like some kind of instruction manual. So I focus a lot on naming, on incremental steps, and really on going back and saying, if I were somebody else reading this code, what would I think if I just glanced at this? And my goal is for each line to encapsulate a concept, to tell a story. So the first line here right now, I'm calling this spaces to radiate. And you know, I'm not thrilled about some of the naming, so I'm going to go back, and as you can see here, I've already been doing it. I want to be very clear. I want the concepts to be sort of cohesive and lined up, and I am perfectly willing to focus a good bit on this. So what I'm doing is I'm saying in my head, if memory serves, like spaces to radiate, all possible spaces, valid spaces. Let's think a little more carefully about this. And so I think we can do better than spaces to radiate. As you can see, I'm, you know, pondering this in situ as I go. So I'm going to go and I'm going to give this a different name, and this is going to be all distances. You know, forget about spaces. We're just declaring a sequence of integers, so these are distances. That makes more sense. So all the distances from the starting location in which I am interested. And these aren't spaces. I want to keep my jargon consistent here. So these are board coordinates. I want to get all the possible board coordinates that could be had here. And then what I want to do is I want to narrow those down to legal board coordinates, and I want to return the legal coordinates. So now if you're looking at this, you're thinking, oh, okay, I'm going to get all the possible distances, and then I'm going to get the board coordinates that those distances correspond to, and then I'm going to filter out to the legal ones. Now I'm pretty happy with this, so I'm going to do another item on my to-do list, which is to go and put this in its own file, not class, as it says on the spreadsheet. So one simple last step here is to declare a class, and I'm going to do my little trick here of giving it a funny name, pasting, and then making sure the name of the file actually lines up via CodeRush. Now this thing is in its own class, and it's pretty readable. I'm going to synchronize my spreadsheet to keep track of my progress, and then I think I'm going to call it a day here and adjourn until next time, when I'll take on starting to implement some of these other classes and their get moves from methods. So life is good. This is going to be green, and I am going to call this a wrap, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.